Hey YouTube family, it's Dinko the Realtor, your Utah Realtor. In today's video, we're going to go over pending U.S. home sales fall to an all-time low in May. You know I have the data, you know I'm going to give you the information and nobody else does. Make sure you smash that like button, help me get this video in front of more people. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that way you're notified when new videos drop so you have all the information that you need. Now, back to this. Pending U.S. home sales fall to an all-time low. And I want to show you what that looks like. This data from the NAR, National Association of Realtors, goes back to 2001. Let me remove myself here. Right there, you see that in 2001, where it was on the graph. Now, if we go down to the lockdowns of 2020, look where down here it is. And we are actually below pending sales than we were during the lockdowns. Now, what does that mean? Well, pending sales is what's going to come in the sale format of homes actually closing. And that's what this article section goes over. So let me switch that over. The number pending home sales fell in May to an all-time low as U.S. home buyers grappled with elevated mortgage rates and rising home prices. Now, I have some data that I'm going to show you over here as well, but before we get into that, pending home sales fell 2.1% in May from the previous month, according to the monthly index released Thursday by the National Association of Realtors. Pending home sales reflect transactions where the contract, let me just remove myself, where the contract has been signed for an existing home sale, but the sale has not yet closed. Economists view it as an indicator for the direction of existing home sales in the following months. So what does that mean? Well, you have to have under contracts decrease before the sales decrease. You have to have under contracts usually increase before sales increase. And I've been saying this, and I actually want to pull this up here. And all of this, actually, just keep in mind that all of this is going on as we're seeing this rise in this inventory. So I've been showing you guys the increase. We have over 2,000 or about 2,000 homes more than we did a year ago. And in the previous video, we went over this where we are above the peak that we had in October of 2023 and essentially reaching the peaks in October of 2022. And in 2022, that second half is when we saw the bigger price drops than we did in 2023. So if you want to buy this year, you want to potentially, per the data, buy in the second half. Once the school year starts, homes start lingering on the market much longer. If you're a seller, you need to get that house on the market ASAP. And as a buyer, you potentially are going to have much more to choose from. Sellers are going to be much more desperate. Days on market are going to be sitting on there for much longer. And usually about 30%, 1 out of 3 homes is on the market 100 plus days once that school year starts. And of course, you have more negotiating room when that happens. And right here, we see that inventory is growing. Now, right here, let me pull this up and make sure I'm not blocking anything. All right. So if we take a look here, right, July 9th of 2023 and July 9th of 2024. And we see the actives, 8,102 and actives, 10,128. So we have just slightly over 2,000 active homes, right? And we see that the difference is essentially about 25%. Well, if we take a look at the contracts right here, it shows that it's negative 0.5%. So it's 4,250 compared to 4,272. However, backup status right here, these are homes that are still taking backup offers. We see that it was 738 and right now it's 850. So you can actually say that under contracts are slightly above maybe some 50, 60 units compared to a year ago. And that is definitely not enough to make up for this gap in the inventory growth that we are experiencing. And I actually have something else I want to pull up here. Let's go over here. Here we are. And this is going to help us analyze things a little bit. Let me just remove myself and let me zoom in a little. Make this a little bit bigger. So this is 2020, 2021, 2022, 23, and then 24, right? Well, if we take a look at 2024, we see here that it was slightly up, 200 units, right here, maybe 100 units, right here down almost 300 units, right here up about 200 units, right here up about 100, right here down almost 300 units. So we see that depending on the month, we are having more sales or less sales, which means that we're going to potentially end the year somewhere where we were at last year in 2023. Well, let's see what that looks like. Let me just go ahead and minimize that. So right here, we see that we had 13,457 less sales, and this is going to 2019. So this is when we're comparing the last pre-pandemic year of 2019. And if we actually go over here to 2022, so let's say we go to 2020 over here, and let's put the equal sign, and we have that minus that. It was actually 18,000 158 from the peak, that we have less sales in 2023. And essentially, we know that this year we're going to be roughly at the same. So we see pending sales are down 28% if we go to 2019. And if we go over here to 2020, which was the height of the market, we see that it was 18,158, which would be over 30%. So right now, we are seeing that sales from the peak of 2020, right after the lockdowns ended, people then started going and buying homes in rural areas. Work from home was just going off, everywhere. Everybody was getting approved. And that's when home sales picked up. Everybody wanted more space, needed more space because of the lockdowns. And that was the peak, right? So we see 52,422. We are down 13,000 from 2019, the last pre-pandemic year, and 18,000 from the pandemic year of 2020. So sales are definitely coming down. And I forgot to actually pull up this article, but I was actually going to include that in this video, but I've showed this in the previous videos a few different times. But the Fed, or the National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and the Builders Association all wrote letters to the Fed urging them to cut rates and not sell their mortgage-backed securities, because the housing could actually cause a recession that the Fed is trying to avoid. And the Fed is having issues with inflation, so they're trying to keep that under control. Well, if these home sales, let's just go back over here, if these home sales are going to continue rising, and the inventory is going to continue rising to these levels, and then we see, oh, I actually zoomed in too much, so now it's messing up my graphs here. Let's go over here, and then if the sales are down, right? If the sales are down, inventory is increasing, and they wrote that letter urging the Fed to cut rates, that housing can cause that recession. Well, we're not out of the woods here, right? The economy hasn't stabilized, the housing market hasn't stabilized, nothing has stabilized. Now, buying in that second half is going to give you better opportunities per the data. If you're a buyer, it's going to give you much better deals, most likely. That's just been the trend since 2022, 23, and it should be here in 2024 per the data, right? Now, if you're wanting to see how things unravel, well, you're going to have to wait first for the economy to see if unemployment is rising, right? We were historically in the lows at 3.5, 3.7, 3.8. We finally hit 4%, and we hit 4.1% here, and that's what caused the 10-year and interest rates to slightly drop, right? Now, once unemployment starts going up, then that's of course going to have major impacts on the housing market, because if you start seeing unemployment go to 6, 7, 8%, then home sales would probably not recover, because, well, even if interest rates drop, people are still not going to be able to buy, because now the unemployment rate is higher, right? So, and I want to show you this one last graph just to kind of make sense of all of this here. Let me pull this up. Here we are, and let me just actually remove myself. So if we take a look, we go back to 2019, right? We see that the first quarter, so that's January, February, and March, is always the lowest, and that's just been the trend even during the pandemic with the home sales. Well, if you take a look here, in 2019, there was essentially 8,900, so 9,000 home sales. Then it jumps up in the spring season, and then of course it goes up here in the summer season. And then once school starts in August, well, September is still part of that third quarter, then we see that drop as the holidays approach. And that's been the trend. Well, look at it 2022 and 2023. That trend actually starts dropping during the summer. Same thing here. So that means that the peak is actually the spring in June, right as school is finishing up, and we see that these prices are dropping. Well, 2019 over here, look, this data right here, nobody is providing this data for you. So smash that like button if you haven't. Hit that subscribe button. That way you have all the information here that you need. And if we go back over here, essentially this 9,000 is almost the peaks that we are seeing here in 2023 and 2024. 10,000. 53, 10,214, and we had 9,000. So the housing market definitely hasn't stabilized. It definitely hasn't recovered, and we see that we have slightly 150, 160 more sales in 2024 so far than we did in 2023. Well, if we go back over here, well, we see that we're still going to end the year off at 34,000, which is much lower. Oh, did not do that. Well, if we go over here, we see that we ended the year at 34,000, which is much lower than we had in 2019 and even lower than we had in 2020. So all of this is indicating that things have not stabilized. This information is going to keep coming. These videos are going to keep coming. If you haven't yet, again, smash the like button. Help me get this video in front of more people. Hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified when new videos drop. And these videos are going to keep coming as the data information is changing.